Every single trader out there knows that gut punch feeling of a loss. But what if I told you the real cause isn't the market? What if it's a series of totally predictable mistakes happening inside your own head? Well, today we're going to put a trading loss on the operating table and find out exactly what went wrong. And, the legendary investor, Benjamin Graham, he absolutely nailed it with this one. He knew way back when that the biggest threat to your portfolio isn't some market crash or a bad quarterly report. Nope, it's the person staring right back at you in the mirror. So that's what we're going to do today. Think of this as our own little operating room. We are about to perform a clinical autopsy on a trading loss, piece by piece, to trace the failure all the way back to the psychological triggers that made it happen. All right, so first things first, we need to identify the real enemy here. And it's not the market, it's not bad luck, it's a series of predictable little glitches in our thinking that we all have. They're called cognitive biases. Now, here's what's so wild about this. These biases, they aren't bugs in our mental software, they're actually features. They're these systematic, predictable shortcuts our brain uses to make decisions faster. The problem is, in the world of trading, these shortcuts can lead us straight off a cliff. So, where does a loss actually begin? You might think it's when the price drops, but nope. The truth is, a losing trade is often set in stone long before you even think about clicking the buy button. It all starts with the biases that mess up your analysis right from the get-go. Okay, so let's meet culprit number one, the one that sets the whole trap. It's called confirmation bias. We all do this. It's this natural pull to only see what we already believe. So you get an idea, right? Like, hey, this stock is going to be a huge winner. Your brain immediately goes on a mission to find every piece of evidence that proves you're a genius, while conveniently ignoring all the red flags suggesting you might be wrong. And from the inside, it feels like you're doing really solid research. And this right here, this is the whole game. Your brain's goal is to prove your idea right. But a professional trader, their goal is the complete opposite. They actively, intentionally try to prove their own idea wrong. They hunt for the holes in their own argument. That's the huge leap from just wanting to be right to doing sound analysis. Okay, so you've pulled the trigger, you're in the trade, but then it starts to move against you. This is when the real emotional war starts, and a whole new, even more powerful set of biases storms the battlefield in your mind. And this, my friends, brings us to the big one, the master bias. The one that arguably wrecks more trading accounts than any other, loss aversion. Just think about this for a second. Psychologists have actually found that the pain of losing, say, $100, is about twice as intense as the joy of gaining that same $100. We are literally hardwired to avoid pain, and that forces us to do some really irrational stuff just to avoid making a loss feel real. And that pain, it makes us do some crazy self-destructive things, like holding on to losing trades for way too long, just praying they'll come back, because selling means admitting we were wrong. Or we do the opposite and sell our winners way too early, terrified that our small profit will disappear. And worst of all, sometimes we double down on a loser, throwing good money after bad in a desperate attempt to just get back to break even. Now, you might be thinking, well, I'm smart. That won't happen to me. Oh, really? Let me tell you about a guy named Victor Niederhofer. Look, this guy wasn't just some average trader. We're talking about a certified genius with a PhD in statistics from the University of Chicago. He even mentored the legendary George Soros. This guy was supposed to be at the absolute top of his game. And yet, in 1997, his fund completely blew up. I mean, he lost everything. And the cause? A classic case of loss aversion. He just kept averaging down on a massive losing bet, refusing to accept the pain and admit he was wrong. Okay, but here is the part of the story that just blows my mind. After rebuilding his entire career, a decade later, he blew up his fund again. For the exact same reason, the exact same mistake. So what's the lesson here? It's simple, and it's humbling. Raw brain power is no match for these deep-seated psychological forces. If you don't have a system to manage them, believe me, they will get you eventually. All right, so the trade's finally over. You've taken the loss. You'd think the damage is done, right? Wrong. The final act of self-sabotage is how our brain rewrites the memory of what just happened, which all but guarantees we're going to do it all over again. See, there are these two sneaky biases that kick in right after the fact to make sure we learn absolutely nothing. First up is hindsight bias. That's the little voice that says, oh, I knew it was going to do that. It stops you from actually analyzing what went wrong. Then you've got attribution bias, which is all about protecting your ego. It tells you your wins were because you're a genius, but your losses, oh, that was just bad luck. Together, they're like a perfect shield that blocks you from ever improving. Okay, wow, that's a pretty bleak picture, isn't it? So how do we fix it? How do we break this cycle? How do we stop being a victim of our own psychology and start acting like an analyst of it? And here's the most important thing you have to understand. You can't just decide to not be biased. You can't outsmart your own brain. The only way to move forward is to build systems, objective, concrete rules that act as guardrails to protect you from your own worst instincts. So let me give you one incredibly powerful, practical system to fight back against confirmation bias. It's called a pre-mortem. Before you ever put $1 at risk, you write down the strong case for the trade. Then, and this is key, you force yourself to write down the strongest possible case against it. And finally, the magic step. You imagine the trade has already failed miserably, and you write a detailed story explaining exactly why it blew up. This simple exercise forces your brain to see both sides of the coin. And when you start doing things like this, something really amazing starts to happen. Losses stop being these painful, emotional punches to the gut. They turn into data. They become valuable pieces of information that you can use to make your system and yourself just a little bit better next time. So, I want to leave you with this one final thought. That last loss you took, it wasn't just a financial hit. Think of it as a tuition payment for a really important lesson in psychology. The only question left is, are you ready to finally learn it